Is this even an album? Is the question that I ask myself as I write this review. When your very existence is predicated on a convolution of your own identity, it's a sign you've made something uniquely remarkable. But if I were to apply an accurate label on Superflat, it would be an auditory experience, or simply a piece of art, because that's how I perceive this. It transcends beyond the contemporary quote of what can be considered an album, and focuses more on Devin's favorite. It's something that requires an approach as obtuse as a 1.5-hour autobiographical experiment with musical intertwining coinciding with the plotline, and so much more than I can possibly cover within a single sentence. This has been one of the hardest things that I've ever done. It's something so abstractly postmodernist that I picture the charming and crude cover artwork that it perceived as modern art in an audio listening group set directly to the side, as visitors analyze it as they would the illustrious Bohemian genius of modern Shakespeare. I laughed at myself when I tried to say that now with an example, because it's genuine. One character is the primary focus of Superflat. It explores the human condition to an unprecedented peak of relatability like no piece of art I've ever seen, with fantastic, detailed, nuanced, and realistic dialogue portraying the awkwardness of social interaction in an incredibly vulnerable way. Its indulgent nature creates its emotional captivation. The ways in which Superflat psychoanalyzes the modern illnesses of depression and anxiety makes for the most cohesive and consistent character arc Devin will stand throughout the entire narrative, with an incredible payoff by the ending. Yet I find Superflat most interesting when focused upon his commentary on one's sense of being. Devin is barely able to maintain a tangible sense of identity, with the stresses of perpetually trading between absolute destruction of ego and the fringe of fractured sanity weighing on a psyche traumatically. The side effects of such manifesting in his fragmented, distorted thought patterns will be the recurring voices which rear their ugly heads all throughout Superflat. Ego also means narcissism, however, with Devin's egocentric behavior regarding his artistry and general perception of reality ultimately causing his psychological downfall, and egocentrism rooted in artistic identity. Yet it's also about defeatism, the polar opposite side of the self-perception spectrum and fixing unto it in an equivalent degree, creating an even more uncontrollable sense of self. And it's this cognitive dissonance which defines Devin's struggle at its very core. Superflat is about society. The Republic is an entity brought up offhanded multiple times, surrogating as a bastardized dystopian representation of America, exemplifying the worst aspects of it to a deafening extreme. The narcissistic tendencies of Devin is a vehicle for this, possibly even representative of American culture ingrained within us all. His desire for success, his obsessive self-centrism, it's all reflective of the national spirit in which we pride ourselves on. Living in the United States conditions is mentality. There's also overt references to socio-political issues of climate change and modern culture within the information age as well. The Republic could possibly even represent anxiety and depression itself, living in a warped and disturbing world compared to what is considered the normal. Whatever it is, it's a clear illusion that Devin's political paranoia during one of the most tumultuous times in modern American history, living under Donald Trump in 2017. It's more than simply America's decision to imagine, however, more so an encapsulation of modern Western society in general and its decadent conditions still felt to this day, and I'm sure will be felt for generations.
Dogs are shit. And you're a piece of shit. And you're a bad boyfriend.
No Those are the first bits of dialogue you ever hear, perfectly exemplifying the encapsulating mood of the whole album. They throw you into the instantaneous situation of absurdist insanity that is flabbergagger, a code word for chaos as Devin puts it, as Devin's mentally unstable subconscious thoughts layer and layer and layer and layer, continuing to intertwine until it becomes a chaotic cacophony of auditory psychosis, as Devin comes off as a paranoid wreck in his self-hatred and intrusive thought processing. Yet despite being potentially confused for an unintelligible wall of words upon first glance, every single sentence uttered is incredibly important, addressing nearly every thematic aspect within Superfly. It's supplemented by a porno audio obnoxiously blasting throughout all of it, one of his few coping mechanisms gone horribly awry, an addiction which simultaneously doubles as a metaphor regarding American fixation towards, as Dave calls it, dominating, that being either societally, in gender normality, or politically, all of which reflective of the manifest destiny and ideology which, even still presently, roots into the core of American culture. An additional unhealthy coping mechanism in the form of the coffee pause ringing pierces through the background near the closing of the track like a siren whistling through explosives, almost representative of Devin's nuclear boiler, with bubbles of insanity infused hydrogen reaching the surface of the border between thought and action. But with a mere sip, the psychotic mania trickles down like nothing was ever there. It's an exploding smorgasbord of insecurity, frustration, and jagged psychological turmoil that's barely possible to translate into words purely due to its extreme density. It's as if a severely anxious panic attack was to Trump's then recent inauguration, while introducing the Republic itself and the implications which its existence carries. Mein Führer, I can walk at the which juxtaposes greatly against the genius portrayal of social anxiety shown from the social interactions of the real life surroundings, which is commentary concerning the cultural and related characters and potentials around him, while subtly introducing the thematics of ecosystem and a few which execute society. When he reaches his stop, taking a moment to contemplate in silence, it gives the listener a pocket of air to reflect on the unbelievable story introduction of the first term, until the bubble of tranquility pops like the very one in his comic guest his newfound environment, as the lines of time blur under one another, segueing dialogue between tracks.
Expensive therapy, expansive therapy, enhancing, entrancing therapy. He'll look me in the eyes and he'll say, Devin, so if you woke up tomorrow and
your issues or concerns or present, talking through how
with nothing but monotone rasp and uncomfortable realistic dialogue, therapist places the listener into a bleakly vivid abyss of fluorescent lighting and claustrophobic sepia paint, reminiscent of countless visits I've made throughout my lifetime since youth. That uneasy feeling is driven by the therapist's lifeless speech patterns, and therapeutic jargon like a routine. As they continue to briefly engage in conversation in a scene of psychological interrogation and often small talk so arbitrary, substanceless and impersonal to each other, and emotive mob to the mental whispers begins to close in on the fragile sound, like a Superfly's brilliance regarding auditory storytelling, incredibly subtle, yet just as dense.
do you feel like you're in your body?
Goosebumps. Grounding yourself is a therapeutic method to regain yourself within the present reality, commonly used for people with poor thought processing and anxiety. On the previous track, Devin tells himself that he's in tune with himself and in tune with his surroundings. And on another project from 2018 entitled Behold, the idea of headspace trappings and therapy are brought up once again on the song. This idea of the sensible witness is specifically important because it ties into every moment of Stephen Platt's constant thematics of cognitive health and anxiety disorder. Because when Devin is faced with this question, he's not even capable of formulating a proper answer. Interruptingly incomprehensible radio station circuit collage of static and audio clips filling in posts and broad relevant dialogue, creating a sensory overload of fractured personal relationships, popular culture, and socio-political knowledge, particularly in the modern within the information era. It all abruptly jumps into silence, as does the growing cluster of voices in the back of the audio Devin's head. He begrudgingly mumbles to himself in an exhausted wrath. A fingerprint clacking of computer hardware equipment reveals that Devin's doing what he's always been doing, escaping the suffering through life and reality of online pornography. It's a vivid scene of low-fidelity audio, auto sound, and general uncomfortability in which the honest experience is arguably the fault, as is the sun. But it's moments like these that Stephen Platt thrives off of. Being as indulgent as it is, it creates an irreplaceable sense of identity.
Hey you, better not sleep.
Looming, tribalistic drum patterns quietly etch into the background like rising tides. The demanding visitor has arrived. This lifeless text-to-speech robot is a manifestation of the intrusive thoughts spawned from the darkest corners of Devin's mind. It embodies the egocentric dichotomy regarding Devin's simultaneous all-consuming self-hatred and abashed narcissism, manipulating his thoughts and actions through self-sabotage and psychological warfare. It's a disturbing portrayal of mental disarray that I can't even begin to describe palpably due to its indiscernible conviction. I hadn't felt anything so accurately representative of my psychological struggles until I heard this for the first time. It's like my psyche made tangible through audio. I mean that more gravely serious than anything I have ever said in my entire life. It recites a callback to the introductory dialogue to exemplify the meaning of its existence, sending shivers of static shock through the listener's spinal cord. It berates Devin for his musical incompetence, to the exasperated nihilistic responses of Devin himself, asking the voice, "Would you like to?"
Well, if you have a problem, then you fix the problem. That's what Shakespeare said. Erase the tracks and start over.
Shakespeare, a figure brought up numerous times, once already during therapy, is used as a constant symbol of artistic egocentrism, with Devin subconsciously drawing comparisons between themselves as means of furthering the thematics of narcissism, considering Shakespeare's position as the illustrious peak of artistic expression in popular culture. But this desire of erasing the tracks also works as a to the American origins of manifest destiny. The way in which America essentially created an geopolitical entity on the massive desiring to be a part of history in the same way the voice urges Devin to be in its following dialogue, doubling down on its coercion to restart the entire process.
You can just keep tuning into the radio's reign of garbage and no one will believe it. Professionals and elected officials online with their existence and acknowledgement of their genius. Belong in history. And you so generously refer to them are always one step behind. You are an artist. You're a
Fantastic dialogue. The first instance of egoism in a direct form, both in a societal sense and in an artistic one, unfiltered without subtle metaphors or obtuse illusions. The latter half, you are an artist, specifically struck with me, almost as if I was being spoken to instead of Devin, and the voice was my own psychosis-addled internal monologue instead of a mere piece of computer audio. Because in a sense, it is. It's the thoughts I shamefully suppress in the same way Devin does, and in the end, I'm still a second-tier perception of self as an artist and an obsession and a desire for attention. This disturbed dichotomy between ego and God, reminiscent of copper pasta I once found on board and music, where I think was 50% illusion and 50% reality. Of psychological instability, but it's moments like these that make me question if it's actually correct, that the two are intrinsically intertwined together, as the two joint perspectives continue to master the statements back and forth regarding Devin's music, and start some of the best listening dialogue within the entire album.
American or American. This country was built around this
to manifest destiny, finally connecting the underlying pieces that have been laid out for the listener beforehand. The piano clearly means something, comprehend what, despite its clear parallels to the Venus and all that sense. Perhaps it's another metaphor for our sweet and self-satisfactory desire, because that's precisely what Devin did by indulging his insecurity. It closes with Devin obeying the auditory shackles of youth and walking over to the planet, right by the Apple iPod 4 track cassette by the unnoticed despite its permeable resonance ever since he moved into man, is a few meaningless chemical fading out of the disregarding the quality of the previous works that reach irrationality, still hyperfixated towards the perfectionist attitude regarding proper audio mixing. Their conversation progresses into a listening of Devin's song without many notable narrative points or intricate metaphors to dissect. American Spirit creates an atmospheric envelopment of melancholic balladry. Beautifully haunting piano notes reverberate into the echoes of a marble-esque white void of somber ambience, as Devin's fractured, astray vocals indiscernibly wail into the distance with extreme emotional vulnerability. It's pure art. More sonic elements gradually enter the stage as the song progresses, complementing the atmosphere even further, until it all anticlimactically dissipates away like sands in the hourglass of time. The two begin exiting the vehicle as Devin explains his artistic shift in direction to organic instrumentation as a means of a more authentic expression of self, something developed in Holy, as well as coinciding with Devin's desire to mitigate the unnecessary noise in his life, with the obtrusiveness of the synthetic elements both reflected in his chaotic music and within our post-internet society. As they begin preparing dinner, Simon continues discussing his opinions on the song, with his stance leading into one of the central ideological aspects regarding the consumption of art Superflat presents, the prospects of accessibility to art. Simon's general viewpoint consists of his ability to cohesively decipher the conceptual ideas being conveyed in the song, therefore diminishing the song's fullest potential due to its incomprehensible nature.
I feel like I don't even know right now. Nobody wants me out anyway. If I don't understand, I'm good.
Devin's pretension is a cynical rejection of mainstream accessibility due to its unreachably high standards for art, lashing out due to its insecure contempt towards modern society. It's a perfect reflection of the absolute merging point between egoism and artistry. I'd like to bring up a quote from Rate Your Music user The Vinroid that describes the moral projected in this conflict of interest better than I ever could. Your shit doesn't gotta be that deep for it to be meaningful to somebody, and on your quest to make the deepest art, you might end up pushing people away with your incessant pretense and elitism. I think hip-hop is the perfect genre to exemplify this struggle, considering how character-driven it is in its lyricism. Even substanceless rappers provide some sort of emotional connection to the listeners, or else said listeners would just be listening to the instrumentals. But Devin's frequently garnered the abstract hip-hop label, a genre specifically dedicated to indecipherability and lyricism, and his music is infamously experimental to an incomparable degree. I personally don't believe this portion is meant to be as interpreted as so two-dimensional as accessibility good, and I do think that there's a bit of nuance in Devin's standpoint as well. There is strength that comes in dabbling with the avant, but in excess you lose yourself in a sea of abstraction and unenjoyability. It's the reason that the most popular Coin Locker Kid songs are the most accessible, such as Gretel, Here Comes Everybody, or Face. Everything in moderation, that's the key. Truthfully, I believe there isn't a concrete answer to this clash of ideologies, even if the core message revolves around the consequences of inaccessibility and extremity. The entire conversation is exemplary of Devin's incredible talent for portraying that looming sense of dread which accompanies awkward social situations.
Like, said even more. People talking about it like it's fucking Shakespeare.
Fucking Shakespeare, brought up once again to introduce a core thread of Superflat's writing right with impeccable hilarity. Cedric Lamort's A Simple Butterfly, and honest to God satire of Kendrick Lamar's Two Pimp a Butterfly, working as a manifestation of mediocrity in popular culture, specifically music. The The irony comes from the fact that Two Pimp a Butterfly is one of the greatest albums of modern times, if not of all time. A self-aware touch which I presume is meant to be self-deprecative to a people regarding popular culture's lack of substance. It's a popular and accessible mainstream hip-hop album, yet it's also a complex and deeply meditative artistic statement overflowing with passion and merit. It's an active fuck you to Devin, providing the worth and strength of accessibility. But Cedric's interpretation, musically at least, is another beast entirely.
Well, alright, let's listen to it.
Particularly referencing the 1971 film of the same name, Wake and Fright is, simply put, fucking hilarious. The track dedicates itself to throwing rockets and creating a mockery of substanceless mainstream hip-hop by a parody, rapping from the perspective of Cedric himself with an unsurprisingly exploitative hip-hop approach to lyricism and portraying his town ghetto. With a European accent over the stupidly bad and extremely cheeky new beat filled with funky synthesizers and including mixed sound effects that sound borderline royalty-free. You ever heard 2 beats 6 beat MP3? That's the best comparison I can make. I was half expecting a shitty producer guy to pop up 80% of the time. This is Captain Beefheart levels of intentional garbage turned avant-garde brilliance. When the song ends, the radio station proceeds to a discussion segment with the host Larry Rhodes, who is most likely another celebrity character who will link to interviewing Cedric regarding the song, his past, and his music in general. It extends upon the sardonic attitude presented within the preceding track of Cedric's vapid proclamations of hit him with the art cinema, seeing almost like a mastermind parallel between Devin and Cedric, considering Devin's a fixation for obscure artsy media references and discography, even though within Superflat itself via Cedric's place of origin.
So, you grew up on the island of Panama.
The political entity referred to as Zembla references 1962 novel Terrified by Vladimir Nabokov and its fictitious slang in Northern Europe of the same name, explaining why Cedric speaks with a British accent. I don't quite understand the relevance of this novel in regards to Superflat's thematics, but I know for a fact that it carries significance even if I cannot comprehend it. It is to Cedric as Compton is to Kendrick, a poverty-stricken hometown of criminal activity who, despite his guilt-ridden escapade from such, paralleling the themes of survivor's guilt Kendrick portrays in T-Path, despite Cedric's lyrics being more akin to the autobiographical writing of a good kid Mad City, still afflicts him in its lingering, traumatizing experiences. It's a metaphor for the growing class disparity in America, resembling surrogating for cities such as Compton. But it's also surrogating as a representation for the disastrous ecological consequences global warming has inflicted upon developing nations, resembling forcing Cedric's aforementioned escapade from its dire conditions bleakly portrayed as denizens, grabbing onto any kind of rap they can get onto, vivid as it is sardonic. And atop all this, they're getting literally walled off from their only source of refuge, being the Republic, a la present-day Latin America. It's an incredibly nuanced, multifaceted, and metaphorical portrayal of the world extrinsic to Western civilization that closes out the discussion between Cedric and Mary after Devin abruptly shuts off the radio and silence dismay, proceeding to continue his belligerent diatribe about his disdain towards popular culture, fueled by underlying jealousy towards it.
Did you hear that? They're treating it like it's art. Everybody treats it like it's art.
I'd be lying if this didn't with some capacity resonate with me. It's aggravating to see the endless appraisal for shallow mediocrity within a community of people who are meant to be serious music critics. Simon continues to push towards the idea of the benefits of implementing even just a mere modicum of accessibility within Devin's music, resulting in the same circular argument that transpired in Devin's defiant statements, upsetting even the prospects of a similarly autobiographical approach within the Cedric.
You think that's fair?
Words that pierce the silence like a rusty dagger. It's in this moment that the listener realizes that the accessibility subplot has finally reached its simultaneous peak and natural conclusion. It's such an abject reflection of Devin's poisonous mental state, such a putrid stench of insecure fragility, such an agitated sense of confrontational aggression that makes it for the highest point within the entire track. And yet, I believe there's actually a hint of truth buried beneath it all. I truly interpret Simon as legitimately enjoying Wake and Fright more than Pioneer. His praise for it is evidence enough. At its core, Wake and Fright simply appeals to Simon more. It's not a balladry of avant-garde mysticism like its competitor, but it differs in the sense that it's actually straightforward enough to comprehend. In YouTuber Digibro's video criticizing the anime The Asterisk Wars, he puts forward the notion that some people watch mediocre anime simply because it's there, comparing it to something like McDonald's. Not everybody is looking to constantly try enjoy living. While Digibro uses this argument to explain away the popularity of medium for anime, the same philosophy can be applied to nearly every artistic medium, specifically music in this case. This is the philosophy behind Simon's preferred taste for insulting his own friend.
That man is not your friend. That is a false reality. You have no friends. You are an artist, David. And you'll never be anything else. You're a part of a class of visionaries and seekers and singers and chicken starters and cast and prophets.
An insanely impactful piece of opening dialogue, contending for greatest on the entire album. It's so abruptly poetic in its manipulative insanity that resonates with me both on an artistic level and a personal level. Do you know how much time I've spent trying to convince myself of this very notion? For so long I've dealt with the intrusive thoughts of doubting my own relationship with others and linking that with my own artistic ability, because I'm a narcissistic freak hell-bent on my own self-destruction. I hate being like this. You're not above people for being an artist, if anything you're beneath. Because 9 times out of 10 you're just a mentally ill freak with his head of his ass whose ability comes at the sacrifice of any semblance of stability and happiness. But the artistic ego complex is ingrained inside of me. At a core, subconscious level, it's unable to control. I want to fucking kill myself. The Grand Inquisitor continues its agenda against Devin and his art, pressuring him even more to completely restart the process, bringing up Shakespeare once again to manipulate Devin even further.
Virginia Woolf parades around New York City celebrating the century. She's not a character. She's just mythologized because she tried to kill herself and she
Virginia Woolf is an important figure referenced numerous times within Superflash. She's a 20th century author who killed herself in 1941 by weighing down her pockets with rocks and walking into a river, partly due to the rising fascism in Europe during the time. This story is retold for the very first track of Superflash, Who's Ashamed of Virginia Woolf, from Coinlocker Kids and referencing the movie Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, with the title implying the parallels between Devin and Woolf, both in the artistic sense and in the political sense. But in the whacked out parallel universe of Superflash, Woolf is supposedly still alive due to suicide attempt failing. It's a change in mythos created to exemplify the violent sex and attitude of the Northern Usadon process of the Grand Inquisitor Devin. Statistics show women have a higher suicide attempt rate compared to men, though not a higher suicide rate. Certain people, most notably the online incel community, have created a massive stigma around this, implying that women fake suicide for attention. It's something he's referenced throughout his entire discography, but has never been done with such dejected bitterness as this. It perfectly showcases the brutalist nature of the Grand Inquisitor, and thus the world itself, as he slowly begins to evoke them, as he synchronizes his defeated Erasmus plans with his psychic
Semen of whores.
Fucking speechless. It's moments like these that make me left in complete and utter amazement. It can't be overstated enough that Devin is a fucking incredible writer. Such a maximalistic and raw display of abject mental distortion and avant-garde insanity. Such a metaphorically dense and thematically charged expression of ideals. Such a biblically dramatic demonstration of psychological destruction. Such a fucking incredible piece of dialogue. Devin's finally been indoctrinated into his own indulgently wayward psychological ideologies, corrupted beyond repair. Political insanity and narcissistic mania, simultaneous self-satisfaction and self-destruction, an absolute reflection of the worst aspects of humanity embodied in a single bit of interaction, and it's something that written words cannot do justice.
Blindness finds Devin creating what once was antithetical to his very being, creating an accessible song. It's intentionally digestible compared to the lo-fi madness of the first 3 tracks, with a lone, simplistic drum loop and straightforward, impassioned lyricism from Devin taking a cue from Simon's advice about Cedric and simply writing a song about himself. Even the alternative rock bridge is traditionalist in nature, and it's even my favorite sounding track as well, proving its appeal, but it's both a blessing and a curse. Simon may think it's great, but the end results of it do nothing but isolate Devin further into his pit of psychosis, restrained in his vocal delivery and strict paranoid about possible audio mixing issues. He's become what he hates most, hence the titular play on the words from Blake and Frank. The distance between Devin and reality is increasing. It's laid within his own psychological state of existence. A burning sensation permeates inside of him. Simon's voice fades away slowly as a disturbing drone grows louder and louder, looming like an imminent thundercloud on the verge of striking. It's as if the listener themselves is staring directly into a black hole, a void of nihilistic disturbance and spiteful hatred, completely absent of any and all semblance of happiness. He begins masturbating again, bitterly so, as if he's forcing it to his indulging in escapist fantasies of all he knows at this point. The drone strengthens even further, coinciding with the sense of pleasure and happiness in himself. The audience slowly becomes a talking and talking until suddenly, at the climactic peak of a bone-crushing drone that takes against the song's wall and happens. Devin's nasty cut gets turned so hard that he rips off his own hands. Human blood and spirit continues to remain self-with Devin. Devin's penis speaks. It takes upon the role of a conscious figure. Once he's meticulous and cycle of political breakdown of the human condition, Devin collapses himself with their like losing direction in his face about himself, which leads in metaphors and dense, incomprehensible abstractions to the complete confusion of Devin, completely awestruck at his current predicament. It's written so ingeniously absurd that I must resist the urge to dissect every piece of individual dialogue to emerge from it. It's by far the most difficult track to comprehensively analyze, exemplifying Superflat's density in its entirety at an extremified degree. Because truly, I don't know for certain what it's entirely meant to represent. I can only make some amount of inferences based on my own subjective interpretations, but I'll try as hard as I possibly can. I believe that throughout the entirety of Superflat, Devin's penis has been meant to represent a manifestation of his ego, along with the Freudian concepts of the id, due to the inherently shallow desires of sexuality it represents. It's been foreshadowed from his earliest demanding visitor that Devin's penis has been physically deteriorating from excessive masturbation, which if translated to its metaphorical definition, would imply Devin's increasing fragility of ego due to his overindulgent tendencies. When he finally rips it off, it, as previously mentioned, represents ego death, the Jungian psychological concept loosely defining a moment of complete loss of one's own perception of self. The following events taking place act as an existential mindfuck on Devin's behalf, working as a more effective therapy session than the 6th track ever could, confronting Devin on his inadequate habitual tendencies regarding his approach to mental health as not working. It's a simultaneous confrontation of Devin's massive victim complex and inferiority complex, both stemming from his intense emotional fragility, forcing Devin to genuinely look at himself and think about his actions for once in his life.
Stop being defensive. No, you don't understand. I didn't accuse you of doing anything wrong. What I said is that what you're doing is not working. You're hitting a wall and you are violently overcompensating for your perceived inadequacy. And you're fucking me up.
At long last, a definitive sense of self-awareness finally emerges from the growing faction of Superflat's aching skin. Devin is forced to confront his own borderline bipolar tendencies regarding his coping mechanisms for his own distorted perception of self, both in the literal sense and in the metaphorical one. Devin's jerking himself off for his own pleasure and disregarding the long-term effects it's had on his psyche and worldview. It's fucking up his ego.
I just thought that you like it.
I'm not sure I ever spent the time to find out what it is that I like. This is about you. And I'm not going to be blamed for it yourself. You're an emotional flatline right now, and maybe if you spent the same amount of time working out how you actually feel as you do attempting to please me without knowing what it is I'm actually thinking, maybe you'd be in a better position to open up and accept me for what I am.
Another gigantic highlight within the entire script. An incredible, almost therapeutic breakdown of the human condition as a whole. I truly think every human needs to hear these words at least once in their life. It really takes a certain level of cognitive understanding to create dialogue as profound as this. But even that pales in comparison to the following interaction.
No, Devin, you have a choice. You can play the part of a frustrated artist and a frustrated human being who has not been given a chance, and you can keep playing that until you finally manage to push everyone away.
forced myself to be convinced that I'm this unrelatable piece of shit portrait artist that nobody but myself can comprehend, indulging in my own misanthropy until an inevitable breakdown, blaming all of my problems on the world around me without looking inside myself and realizing that most of the problems around me. This was like an epiphany for me. Maybe not in realizing, but at least in confronting my self-destructive behaviors. It's stuff like this that reminds me why I consume art in the first place, for some kind of emotional connection. And on that front, I don't think anything could possibly even compete with Super Flat. The penis further elaborates upon this point, examining the ways in which we perceive the world around us is affecting us more so than what is actually affecting us, ending in the final comparison of neglecting to open a window. With a hesitant, fear-soaked deep inhale, Devin obliges with the penis's request, leading into what's possibly the most beautiful moment on the entire album, The Window, parts 1 and 2. The window itself is a metaphorical representation of a life that could be without Devin Byrne picking himself as happiness in the last one of life, like an interdimensional portal to another realm of existence. It paints a vivid picture of Devin and Simon outside, recording a slight singer-songwriter who's fueled by emotional turmoil, with animal sounds just added to the atmosphere. While part 1 is a mere intro, part 2 is the song itself, and it's just, wow. It's not an avant-garde soundscape that might be woven experimental rap and pop and showcasing incendiary powers, but one thing it does have is something that no experience will, and that's raw, genuine passion, real emotion. It may just be a simple folk song, but it's one of the most emotionally resonant moments on the entire album. It really exemplifies the power that accessibility holds with the rightness of peace. Devin repeats across the entire song, I am afraid. Typing it out like that really makes me feel myself personal, it really is. He is afraid. I'm afraid too. You, reading this review, you're afraid as well. But the song contrasts this with its final line, perfectly resolving Devin's character as a simplistic, bittersweet bliss.
I'm afraid I don't give a shit.
Stop!
This isn't a joke. This isn't entertainment. What do you mean? What do I have to be afraid of? We got a reality TV show president building a wall. He's building a fucking wall to keep people out while the planet is sinking in the water. This whole nation is sinking in the water right now, and nobody's thinking about it. Nobody's talking about it except like some tossed-off thing that isn't actually happening. Xenophobia. People walking around with tracking devices in their pockets, pushing information out into an invisible cloud to try and get dates, or look at a fucking football game, or a cat video, and to buy something. Just to buy something and act to buy something. Mindless consumption, voyeurism, meaningless fucking. No value of self, or mind, or body, or spirit, or the earth. And yeah, I'm just complaining, I'm just ranting right now, but this is really happening. This isn't a fantasy land. Brainwashing monopolies of endless noise and servitude. A fucking race war. You're a nigger. You're a nigger. Look at this game. I'm a nigger. I'm a nigger. Confinement of my skin. Flesh, objectification of the human body, looking at each other and ourselves through a magnifying glass. It's a distance. That's the only thing that it's doing. The only thing this obsession over these tiny little details is doing. We're on a fucking planet together, walking around that we don't even know. The only reality we know to have, we don't even know if it's real. But all I'm gonna do is make the record because I'm trying to forget it too. But yet I'm still here. I exist. Where your mom is dead and everything you love is promised to fade away gradually or be destroyed by your own hand, I still exist, and so does everyone else. Here together, pretending that the only thing that matters is me!
I don't
think anything that I could possibly write could do justice to what you just heard. This cemented Super Flavia's masterpiece for me. I fucking hate the world too sometimes. The line about a fucking race war has been replayed over and over again in my head over the past year or so, considering what's been happening recently. I look at the direction that our society is headed even years after the release of this album, and it just makes me want to not be alive. Just exist within an endless void devoid of any and all context of the outside world. Just stay in my room with my window shut on my computer until the day I die with no consequences for my actions and simultaneously no action for myself ever taken. But I can't. I exist, and Devin does as well. I'm stuck here, I'm a person, I'm required to be a functional member of society. I'm a human, and if there's one thing that I really emphasize about this album, it's the innate ability to dissect the human condition and the moral horror down to its very essence. And this spat of rage-induced mating is a perfect reflection of such. The narrative at this point has reached its climax. Devin is functioning on the absolute brink of insanity. Suddenly, a violent banging is heard from the side of the listener's headphones. Devin has gone into complete defense mode, undergoing a legitimate panic attack, maniacally whispering fragmented patterns of situational denial to himself. His penis continues crushing him to open the door. To be brave, repeated like a Buddhist mantra with the opposite effect one would have. His own whispers begin coinciding with the penis's, as it once did with his intrusive thoughts, but worked on its head to the opposite spectrum of emotional stability. And finally, as Devin reaches the doorknob, the voices dissipate away, at long last, leading into one of the most satisfactory moments within the entire album.